This is Self-Care-ish, a podcast where we talk about divorce, dating, choosing not to date, and saying yes to the things you've been scared to indulge in and no in a way that won't get you ostracized by society. The goal for this series is to defy some of the social stigmas and hurdles people face when they make a bold decision, whether it's to leave a relationship, quit a job, or even being brave enough to tell friends and family no when you're at capacity and you need time for you. And who am I? I'm Megan Lonergan. I've been a columnist and copywriter for over a decade, and I'm also a newly separated co-parent. And if there's one thing I love more than anything, it's meeting people where they're at. And where you're at is probably busy, most likely multitasking while you're listening to this. So with no further ado, it's time to get self-care-ish. I am super passionate about this week's topic, so I'm just going to skip all the preamble about clicking the advertisers in our show notes, although they are fantastic companies, and just following us on Instagram at Self-Care-ish Podcast. But all the links are down in the show notes. We'd love to have you there to share memes with. Let's get into it. Okay, welcome back to Self-Care-ish, where we believe me time is a form of we time, and giving to yourself indirectly gives back to those you love. Here we teeter delicately on the threshold of selfish and selflessness. Some topics are easy to discuss, like being emotionally slutty and dating multiple people, or healing after emotional affairs, or stalking your partner's Instagram following. Hell, even discussing taboo sex positions is easier than the topic of today's pod. Why? Because money. I don't know why, but this very dry system of trading digital numbers for goods and services is a massive relationship hurdle. Like, maybe there are some of you out there listening who are really like, nah, I make sure I discuss finances up front on the first date. But I wager most of you, us, me, everybody, we tend to skirt that issue, pretend it's not an issue at all or important. But it is important. I mean, we need to figure this out because financial stress contributes 20 to 40% of all divorces and relationship breakups. And honestly, there's never been a more stressful time around finances. It's something we all need to discuss. So we're going to talk about it today. But 20 to 40%, that's a lot of people going through enormous trauma because talking about dollary dues is difficult. And I promise you, I'm not sitting here about to wax lyrical about how I am the best at this. In fact, I am horrendously bad at this, or I was. And I think a lot of divorced people will tell you that once you've gone through the flames of uncomfortableness that is a divorce or a long-term breakup, your line chart of fucks goes up towards making sure you never make the same mistakes again, while the line of fucks you give about worrying about having tough conversations goes down. And hopefully, if you do it right, at the point that those fuck lines intersect, you will be in a new relationship, boldly using all the techniques and skills you've garnered from doing things the hard way from your past relationships and doing it all right in the new relationship. But you and I, we both know that that is the unicorn in the Garden of Eden version of dating. You could be the most emotionally evolved, professional, wise human being on the planet and still find it awkward to split the check on a date. I mean, Bernie Madoff, really good at making money, but made one or two embarrassing mistakes and ended up having to cover his tracks and never told anyone until his house of cards almost toppled the entirety of Wall Street. And he worked in money. So yeah, it's tough. And I guess the only way I know how to approach and discuss this issue is to couch it in my own experience. Now, a quick backstory to my own relationship with money history. At the start of my marriage, I was not involved in the cash stuff. We had a joint account and we both just fed it with what we had and hoped for the best. And I hate admitting this now because I have a very different approach and I've learned to love investing and saving and making little money goals and hitting them. But here are a few of the inner brain slogans that ran in my head around money before I got smarter about it. One was, I'm a journalist. We can only make X amount per year. As you can see, putting a limit on my earning potential. Or, well, he makes more money, so he should be in charge of the financial decisions. There I was, giving away my power. Or, I have to work really hard if I want to make a lot of money. And that's a hangover from my parents, who were both self-employed. And the last one is my favorite. How much they love me is quantified by how much they spend on me. Ugh, that one feels really icky and vulnerable to say. And I still struggle with that one, to be honest. I know it doesn't sound great to say, but I don't think I'm alone in that sort of lizard brain concept. Part of that is deep-rooted childhood upbringing shit. But another part, I think, is just driven by the society we live in, our culture, in which we are bombarded with messages like that slogan from De Beers Diamonds, which says, true love will find a way, indicating that the value of your love is determined by the cut and clarity of a literal rock. Like, it's crazy. But I'm not shitting on materialism because this is self-care-ish and we love buying stuff for ourselves and making ourselves feel good. But I know that this thought process is really deeply penetrated into my psyche because I remember one of the first times I went out to dinner with my ex-husband and his family. We went out to a restaurant, we had a great time, and at the end, when the bill came out, they all talked so openly and relaxedly around who ate what and how they should split the bill. And I remember with every minute that we spent working out how to make it all equal, my heart rate was just reaching hummingbird levels. Like my brain was just screaming, wait, don't you guys love each other? Shouldn't one of you be sneaking off, pretending to go to the bathroom and then throwing your card at the maitre d' and then coming back and proudly proclaiming, I got this, guys, and then feeling really flexy that you took care of the whole bill and everyone gives you hugs and love and promises to take care of it next time? That seems more healthy, clearly. Now, obviously, I think my ex's family had a much healthier and balanced approach to paying a bill. But you can see how the emotions of your upbringing can get intertwined with your emotions around money. Like, question, have you ever been out with friends or out with a new partner and just felt that urge to pull out your card before they have a chance to say, I got this? And maybe it's because you want to feel generous and do something nice. Or maybe you got that twinge or that little ache inside of not wanting to have an uncomfortable conversation. And I've learned since then that twinge is always information. Because in modern society, we are pretty removed from the animal kingdom, but we are still animals and we can sense danger. And the most dangerous thing that can happen to us in the 21st century, being uncomfortable. Varying degrees of uncomfortability, of course. Like, I know we deal with massive disparities of wealth on this planet, and some people have food insecurity, and some people have indigestion, and all of us are somewhere in between. Now, before I go on a rant about the whole global economy, let's just pull this pony back to relationships. If money is both the doorway and the barrier for comfort, then it makes sense that the best thing you can do to create peace in your relationship is getting a little uncomfortable and talking about it. I know this works because recently, for the very first time in my romantic life, I was upfront about money, or my feelings around it, or my uncomfortable feelings around it. So recently I did that thing where I pulled my card out, but out of nerves, to make the moment go away. And because I'm more aware of that stuff now, I did a little internal interrogation. And I know now that when that feeling comes up, it means you need to have a chat. So what did I do? I talked to a family member that I trusted. I confided in a girlfriend. I listened to self-help podcasts. I did absolutely everything I could do to avoid doing the one thing that actually made it better: talking to my partner. And I remember I went up to his house and I was like knocking on the door and I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And he was like, hey, what is wrong? And I was like, I felt like you didn't love me when I paid the bill and I actually wanted us to split it, but I didn't feel comfortable asking to split it because my family would always run to pay the bill and I know it's my own internal money trauma and I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. Can we talk about it? Ugh. And I know the face you're making right now. He is an extremely generous guy. He pays for most of the stuff and we both work very hard to make things very equal. But this was just one scenario where I think I built it up into a big thing because I knew my subconscious had to have the conversation. Because I knew we were doing what a lot of us do in relationships, avoiding it. And you know what happened? It wasn't the end of the world. It actually brought us closer to the point where we feel comfortable to discuss our financial goals and make plans for the future and feel like we understand each other better. And now I'm addicted to it. Maybe it's because we live in this economy, but that kind of transparency calms me in a way nothing else does. So let's take a break for a sec, and when we come back, I'll give you 3 tips from a divorced person on how to navigate the money chat that hopefully won't get you divorced again. Are you feeling nervous? We all know money talks in new relationships. It is a topic so thrilling and romantic, it'll make your heart skip a beat in all the wrong ways. Who needs candlelit dinners and whispered sweet nothings when you can just dive headfirst into the exhilarating world of Excel spreadsheets? These days, I actually think a good spreadsheet can be romantic. It symbolizes so much. Each formula, a recipe for personal growth. And there's nothing hotter than making goals together. Of course, it can be awkward. But so was tantric sex the first time you tried it, and look at you now. You love it. I'm just kidding, I haven't done that before. Or have I? There's a whole episode on that coming up, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, tip number 1 for taking the taboo out of your money conversation. Timing is everything, or maybe not. Okay, let's talk about the perfect timing for money conversations. Should you bring it up during a romantic date? Absolutely not. Should you bring it up in the bedroom? Definitely not. Or should it be when your partner's binge watching their favorite show and you've just snuck a bite out of their meatball sub? No, no, no. But I think you definitely should do it over a meal or a glass of wine or something comforting to calm the nerves and make something hard easy. Because you don't want it to feel like a business meeting. You want to make it more of a business and pleasure situation. Let's call it a pleasure meeting. Now, if that seems too intimidating, I don't blame you. I do recommend that you both throw on that show, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, it's on Netflix, and allow other people's toxic financial relationships to provide the benchmark for you both to sit there and say, wow, I am so glad we aren't like them. Actually, what is our current financial situation? And then let the rest of the magic work from there. Number 2, honesty builds trust. Unless you prefer deception, in which case, just stay shady. But most of us, before having the money conversation, start off dating with a solid foundation of half-truths and hidden credit card statements. We all work so hard to create an illusion of financial stability until the day of reckoning arrives, and then it's all compounded in one awful relationship-breaking moment. It's actually ridiculous that we do it this way. Because each of us has our own money story. I told you a little bit about mine at the start of the pod, and it is so valuable to start your pleasure meeting learning what your partner's is. So asking questions like, how did your parents approach their finances? Was money hard to come by? How does the word wealth make you feel? What do you consider wealthy? Once you know that, it helps you see so much deeper into their financial movements and why they might prefer to splurge on a date night meal, but still wear underwear with holes in the crotch. And yes, I'm talking about me there. The third tip's my favorite. Plan for the future together. Or at least pretend to. Future planning. I know you're sitting there like, what a joy, Megan. But sitting down with your partner and discussing your dreams like owning a mansion or a private island, retiring at 30 to pursue your passion in extreme knitting is actually really fun when you know how to do it right. And this part is often surprisingly difficult for a lot of people. And I know this because I remember when I was in this business cult and they taught us how to do this. When we were first tasked with making a big dream or a goal, everything I first suggested for me was just extremely practical. Things like pay off the mortgage, pay off the car, pay off my couples therapy bills. The problem is, as you can probably tell, is neither of those future goals were terribly exciting. They didn't really stir the loins, so to say. In fact, they kind of seemed so boring that they felt insurmountable. But when you sit down with your partner and make fun goals, imagining the kind of stuff you can do together once you pay off the mortgage or the car, that's when the internal shift starts to happen and you both feel united in your common goal to jet to the Maldives, sorry, I'm Australian, and afford the world's biggest drinks package. It's just about creating that unified vision. And that feeling you start to get in your stomach, it switches from anxiety into excitement and optimism, and all just from getting a little real with your partner. It's crazy. But all right, this is getting super long, but as you can already see, there are so many layers to the money and dating issue. But we're talking about it because sometimes self-care comes in the form of tackling hard conversations. If you want to have your say on anything I've discussed in this ep, or maybe you want to share your own money story and how it's affected your relationships, leave me a voice note at selfcare-ish.com.au, selfcare-ish.com.au, and follow for all the memes at Selfcare-ish Podcast on Instagram, or you can DM me directly at Megan Lonergan on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you next week.